So when you're transferring that risk, it's important to kind of think about what is it that you're transferring? What is the risk that you're giving to the insurance company, and how much risk should you keep and how much risk should you give them? So kind of like, I just want to walk through coverages with you real briefly so we get a good sense of, on an auto insurance policy, what are the risks that the insurance companies are willing to take? So the first one is going to be liability. Liability is covering third party. So if that's covering the other people, if you're at fault in an accident, the liability covers their injuries, bodily injury, and their property damage. So their vehicle, or it could be other property such as a fence or a house, if you were to hit some stationary property. So liability, bodily injury, liability, property damage, and then uninsured motorists. Now, before I go on, I do want to just kind of side note, and I'll come back to this because it is super important. The most important part of your auto insurance policy, in my opinion, is that liability amount. Because ultimately what we're doing is we're saying, if we're at fault in an accident and the person was seriously injured or a lot of property was damaged, I want to make sure that the focus stays on the insurance company, not on my assets. So that liability is what protects me from being sued, protects me from lawsuits. So it's very important. I would say it's the most important part of your auto policy. The next part is going to be uninsured motorists. It's going to cover you in the event that somebody hits you with no insurance or not enough insurance. It covers your bodily injury, your property damage. And it is important as well because sometimes you might get hit by someone who doesn't have any insurance, or maybe they have state minimum insurance, and it's not enough to cover your injuries or your property damage. And so it's nice to be able to have that covered by your own company. Now, you're not going to be exposed to a lawsuit. You could still suffer significant financial loss though if you can't work, and they have very minimum coverage and they have no assets. That's where you run into the problem, is if they have no assets, even if they're clearly in the wrong and you sue them, you can't get anything from them because they have no assets. So that's why that uninsured motorist becomes important, is to protect you financially and get somebody who might not be being responsible in carrying adequate coverage. Personal injury protection or medical payments pays for you or anyone in the vehicle, regardless of who's at fault, for medical expenses and lost wages up to the amount that you choose. And so even if you're at fault in the accident and you get hurt, that medical expenses will cover med payments. Personal injury protection will cover medical expenses. It covers lost wages. It'll also cover things like personal injury protection will also cover things like if you have to have someone come in and help with household chores or lend assistance to you while you're recovering from the injuries of the accident. It also has some very limited coverage for final expenses like burials if somebody passed away in the accident, regardless of who's at fault. So lots of coverage inside of that personal injury protection. It's a great coverage. It's very robust and adds a lot to your policy. There's a premium associated with that as well. So it becomes more of a convenience coverage because, again, it's not going to be a lawsuit issue. This is a convenience coverage of like, hey, I'm being taken care of, and you choose like $10,000, $35,000. So it's more limited the amount of coverage that you're getting in it, but it's very robust and nice to have. The next is going to be physical damage for your vehicle. So you're going to have comprehensive and collision. Comprehensive is going to cover fire, theft, vandalism, glass, animals, weather-related issues. So it's very broad. It's not covering if you get in an accident and damage the vehicle, but it's covering most other things. Collision is if you hit something or somebody hits you. Collision would cover the vehicle. And the reason why I say if someone hits you is you can opt, even if it's the other person's fault, you could opt to have your policy cover the damages to your vehicle, and then your insurance company will subrogate against the other person who was at fault. Sometimes we'll do that if the other carrier is maybe out of country, like from Canada, or if the other carrier is being difficult settling the claim. It might make more sense to cover it through your own policy and allow us to go fight with the other carrier. So that's going to cover physical damage to your vehicle if it's in an accident, sort of. Deductibles are going to be subject to, so you're going to either choose your deductible 100, 500, 1,000. Deductibles are something that's a little bit unique. A lot of people want really low deductibles. And something I tell people to think about is you should carry a deductible as high as what you're comfortable paying in the event of a claim. So that way you're offsetting that with premium savings. You're kind of betting, on yourself that you're not going to have something happen. But if something does, what are you comfortable with paying in the event that something does happen? If there is an accident, if there is a claim, how much could I come up with? What am I comfortable paying out of pocket first? And go as high as you're comfortable with, because that's going to save you on your monthly premiums. And it also reduces the number of claims you have on your policy, which again saves you on your monthly premiums in the long run.